Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending upon where you may be. I'm incredibly excited about this panel today. HITEC TV is producing this in partnership with HFTP. And we're doing a quick recording, 45 minutes, give or take, to discuss revenue management systems and the innovation that's taking place in that world. And we could not have better panelists than what we have today. We have Paprika Le Bourgeois from Infor, Klaus Kohlmeier from Ideas, and Josh Schaap from Roomdex. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each one of them to introduce themselves and give us a little bit of their own personal background and corporate background, and then we'll get right into the questions. This is going to be super exciting because of the fact that what I'm seeing in the marketplace today is mobile impacting revenue management. Revenue management is almost everywhere when it relates to the hotel industry now. And so we'll be diving a little deeper into those kind of questions and what's going to happen next. So Paprika, please introduce yourself to the folks that are watching.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Paprika. I have a background. My career has always been in revenue management. So I did actually a master's in revenue management, and then I worked for an OTA company, then moved to the hotel industry, which was always a passion. And then I was very interested to get a revenue system, but it took ages. So in the end, I ended up working for a revenue management system company, EasyRMS, which was bought by Infor. And today I'm still working with our RMS products, handling the support team, the support and customer success, and also involved in the whole product management topic as well.
That's great, Paprika. We're kind of closely aligned because I was part of the team that did the due diligence on the EasyRMS acquisition
Oh,
back in the day
really?
at Infor. So that was a lot of fun. Klaus, welcome.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for having me, and appreciate HITEC and Hospitality Net for the invitation. Yeah, I'm Klaus. I've been with Ideas for many years, on and off. This is my second stint. I'm currently, I have multiple hats, chief evangelist, which is all about thought leaderships, talking to the industry like we're doing today. I am also the chief development officer, which means I look after strategy for the company. I look after our technology partnerships and our longer term roadmap, working together with the marketing, sales, product teams, and a bunch of other people. So multiple hats in the company, and I'm very excited to be here today for a great conversation.
Thanks, Klaus. Mr. Schaap, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Very nice to see all of you. Thank you again also for having me on this panel. I'm equally excited, to be honest. My history has been in hospitality software for 30 plus years. I spent 18 years at Micros, where most of my time I was leading the product and engineering teams of the Opera products. So that's where I did a lot of revenue management or a bit of revenue management, integrations, PMS, all these kind of things. I left to start a company called Stay in Touch PMS, which I sold in 2018 to Shiji. And then last year, in the midst of the pandemic, we started a company called Roomdex, which I'm founder and CEO, co-founder and CEO with two of my old-time friends as well, where we focus on the automation of room upsell, early arrival, late departure, and guest services. And with that, we've also integrated, in our opinion, very good revenue management tactics around those aspects of the hotel products. And that's me.
Thanks everyone for joining. And so let's dive right into it. I'm gonna, Paprika, ladies first. I'm gonna start off with you. Over the past 18, 24 months, it's been challenging, but you know, I think it's also been a time of innovation. So when you're talking revenue management and integrations, et cetera, and Infor, how has Infor spent the last little while enhancing its products, developing its products, getting ready for, you know, what's coming down the pipeline, which could be revenge travel, could be whatever everybody says it's going to be, right?
Yeah, so it's been an exciting time for sure, and it's nice to be in a global company, you know, with customers all around the globe, because we spotted that things were happening in Asia really quickly, and that's where we kind of did a bit of a shift and reassessed what we wanted to prioritize. And what we completely focused on is the whole forecasting part. That's key in a revenue system. It's kind of the basis of the optimization is how you're able to forecast. And we were forecasting pretty okay in the past, but our methods were, like most systems, relying a lot on historical data. So we had always in our heads to do something new and be more agile in the forecasting methodology, because we had noticed that need, like when there was the volcano event or events in Hong Kong. But these were, like small, dedicated, and they don't always last that long. But with the pandemic, it was global, and it's just lasting and lasting and lasting. So we actually restarted and developed a brand completely new methodology of forecasting, totally based on artificial intelligence, deep learning. And that's been, quite an adventure, because every time you develop something linked to science, it's not like, oh, it's just working like that. But the goal is to really be able to focus on the books and trends and on the books, recent trends, and not just on historical data, and also be a lot less reliant on manual input from people. Not having people say, oh, that's this happening, this is this season, that's what I expect, but having really the system, the intelligence. And we're able to do that because now computing power is massive. So systems are able to calculate and get all that data, put it in the calculator, and provides a forecast that's adaptive and reacts. So that was one of the big things. And another aspect is also the whole user experience, the accessibility of our products. So putting in a lot more in-product education, putting in, in-product chats so people can contact us easily so that we're there. Having, self-service for things, so customers don't have to rely on us to implement the system or to change stuff if they want to. So that was, another big focus area, so that when things come back, our products can be, used very quickly. And we also, my last point is we focused on a pricing tool, because, we thought that when people do come back, everybody will need some kind of, way to revenue manage. And some people don't have revenue managers, especially with the pandemic. A lot of jobs have shifted. So we want hotels to be able to get as much opportunities as possible with any recovery going on. So we focused on a bit of a more simple tool that handles the pricing. So these were our,
Wow,
that's what
that's
kind
a
of
lot.
kept us busy. Yeah.
I don't want to get too deep into deep learning, but that would be that's an entire
It's
session
super
all to
interesting.
itself.
Yeah.
Klaus, over to you. What has Ideas been up to?
Yeah, obviously very challenging, and let's not forget that it's still very challenging in many countries around the world, right? Asia is still in a very difficult situation, and so are many other places. Kind of what we've been busy with, very first, the first step that we did was make a quick decision that we're not going to lay off anyone or furlough anyone or cut anyone's pay internally, and that was a very quick, I think in the first week, we made the call that this is the most important time to deal with our clients and protect and serve our clients. And for that, we needed everyone full hands on deck throughout the whole period. So we wanted to take the whole concern and anxiety away from our people. So we made sure that everyone knew that they're completely protected and taken care of. And then the first 4 months or so really focused on leveraging the data that we have from our 16,000 hotels around the world to understand what's going on and teach the system what's going on. So that right now, over the last 18 months, every 2 weeks, we go in, look at all the data we collect from millions and millions of data points around the world, and we fine-tune the algorithms and the science that goes into the pricing decisions. So we can see where pickup is happening, how recoveries are occurring, and we can then apply those trends and that data to other countries and regions that are maybe not at the same cycle or maybe at a different stage of cycle. So we are constantly monitoring what the systems are doing. Every 2 weeks, we go in and readjust and rebalance and fine tune our algorithms according to the countries and the regions and the stages of recovery they're in, or not recovery if countries are closing down again. So we're able to do that through our team of 23 R&D and scientists that work for us on a permanent basis. The second thing we did was roll out a new tool that's called RefPlan, because we realized that people need to be answering more questions than ever before to more and more stakeholders. We now have the asset managers, the general managers, the owners, the banks, all asking revenue managers what's happening. So RefPlan allows a hotel to revenue manage, not revenue manage, but establish a total forecast for total revenue, including your F&B forecast, your meetings forecast, and everything else that's going on in the hotel. And then do that automatically and feed the forecast into various finance systems. So we've heard from some of our clients that have implemented the system last year that they would not have been able to iterate their forecasts and the budgets as quickly as the market demanded it without a tool like that, which helps automate a lot of the manual forecasting and budgeting processes. And then actually, it has been a really good year for us last year, because we have seen a huge pickup in clients and a huge pickups in new contracts, because ultimately people realized that even in the times that we were in last year, demand is going to come back. And when demand comes back, the very, very forward-looking companies made significant investments in revenue management technology. So we're actually now looking at a record pipeline in terms of new hotels that are going to come on board in the next 18 months, and we're going to see some very significant growth throughout 2021 and 2022.
That's awesome. Jos, how about yourself? I've been seeing lots of announcements on LinkedIn of hotels joining the fold. What have you been up to over the past 18 months? Oh, you're on mute, Jos.
You get the grand prize.
There you go. You win.
It's not a Zoom call, but it's a Zoom joke, I guess. So contrary to Klaus, we didn't have to fire anybody. We didn't have anybody last year, January, February, when we started. So we actually hired and founded the company amidst of COVID. So that kept us very busy. We've been doing, I think, very well. I mean, I heard the theme both from Klaus and from Paprika. Automation is really important. It's important to provide less screens, more automation in the background, so that hotels don't have to spend time to actually look at those screens and do, flip some switches and all that stuff. So we founded Roomdex with the intention to automate room upsell, early arrival, late departure, and also guest services. So that hotels don't have to do any administrative work anymore to keep those things sold, to get those things sold, and to deliver on them, which is also very important. And we also found that there's a huge gap. We're going to talk a lot about revenue management today, and that's revenue management is mostly focused, pre-booking and on the initial booking itself. And after that, it kind of fades away. There is not really any, as far as we are aware, revenue management going on that's happening post the booking until the guest arrives into the hotel. So there's opportunity there that's being left on the table. So our tool is really focused on adding opportunity to create and increase the guest wallet share, so get more money from the guests in a nice way, so that the guest feels good about it and the hotel obviously has more revenue. The product, we started building it in early last year. We went live with the first hotels in September 2020. We are now at close to 80 hotels in the process of going live. We have extremely good success with all hotels, even throughout COVID. Most hotels, that did not do well had enough occupancy to at least generate good revenue and additional revenue, which is sort of free revenue and high margin revenue by offering digital upselling. And we added in there also the concept of attribute-based merchandising, which means we display the offers still in the sense of room categories that can be purchased, but they are positioned by attribute. So guests can see, if they select a higher room category, what kind of attribute they're getting. And that we're going to talk about more of that, I think, in this video today. That, I think, leads us down the road to to really put in place. We kind of put in place the foundation to provide attribute-based selling for us to around upselling. So, I mean, we've been really busy with trying to get to full automation. That's really what we wanted to do. And if you look at Hotel Tech Report, you look at the reviews from Roomdex, not as many as some of our competitors yet because we just started, but they're all 5.0. And most importantly, they all have the words in it. No work, very easy to use, no effort, effortless revenue driver. So it's kind of, that's what we set out to do. We want to build services that automate processes in the hotel.
Right.
And given my experience over the last 30 years with my co-founder Pierre and Denis, we kind of sat down and we thought about, if you look at all the hotel software that's out there, and I think Paprika mentioned a little bit already that there's a lot of screens and there's a lot of switches and admin work that still needs to be done, and there's very little necessarily, if you want, machine learning going on in the back end that can automate, take away some of these processes. And that's the focus we want to take with Roomdex. And kind of see, okay, we have enough data now. Why do we have human beings still make the decision, is an early arrival available today or not? The machine can do that for the human being. And that's the process, the road we're taking with Roomdex. So bringing automation and more revenue into hotels.
Cool. Klaus, is there anything that you cannot revenue manage anymore in a hotel?
Is there anything that you cannot revenue manage?
Right.
Well,
because it's getting pretty broad, isn't it?
Yeah, I could argue people are the largest cost centers in a hotel. Can you revenue manage people? So probably not.
Okay, let's talk fixed assets.
No, you can. Absolutely. We're very much in, and as Jos mentioned as well, right? We're very much in the area of total revenue management. And we're approaching the area of total profit optimization very, very quickly, where we're not just moving on, on revenue, but also on profitability and margins. So we have now the technology in place. We have the knowledge in place in terms of the science and the algorithms, so what we call revenue science, that we are able to understand demand, and we understand price sensitivity, and we understand what customers want, and we are able to manage and optimize across the board, not just on the room side, which is always still the biggest revenue driver in many hotels, definitely the biggest profit driver. But we are deep in the area of total revenue management. Absolutely.
What about you, Paprika?
Yeah, I mean, in a hotel, indeed, I was trying to think, revenue management is, it works when you have the fixed capacity or some kind of constraints. So apart from the people, things are, they have a fixed capacity. It's not like because suddenly there's a lot of demands and I don't know, restaurant or meeting rooms that suddenly you're going to build a new restaurant and in your meeting room, so you can optimize it totally. And I guess the ultimate goal is to optimize every single centimeter or inch of your property, and it should be feasible.
Right. And, along those lines, Infor has a substantial food and beverage group, right? From dealing with hardware and software as well. And there have been restaurants that have tried to revenue manage their menu items. And, I think at the end of the day, I think there is going to be some way where people are going to start being aware of the fact that if they go to a restaurant and out of hours, so to speak, peak hours, that maybe they're going to get a better price. Who knows?
Exactly.
And if we look back to telephones back in the day, if you called after 11 o'clock, you got a cheaper rate than if you called at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, mind you, that was a long time ago, but I think people are getting a little bit more used to price, variability. So it's quite interesting. Jos, what do you think?
What's driving it? Sorry, just Alan. What's driving it? Just look at the last 12 months and and all of a sudden the emergence of QR codes in North America, right? In Asia, QR codes have been around forever, and the digitization of the menu items and getting rid of the paper menus gives you a lot of opportunity to become more dynamic in your pricing. So that's driving a lot of that.
Yeah, hotels had to get rid of paper everywhere, right? And it's a very good point. Jos, what you kind of brought up attribute-based selling, and when I'm talking about revenue managing anything, I think you could revenue manage all the attributes associated with the room as well, can you?
You could, but before I go there, I want to go back to your previous question on on revenue management. And
Yeah.
I think Klaus and Paprika said you can pretty much revenue management anything. I think there's also when you talked about F&B, there's a fulfillment that comes into play. And when I started my career, I was a food and beverage controller at Hilton International in London, where I was doing applying some menu engineering at the time, which basically means you look at which menu item sells more than the others, or which one do you remove to actually, from the bottom up, reduce cost overall and increase profit. And that leads me I'm using that as an example because I think revenue management is getting very optimized and very good at determining the right price for the right room at the right time. I think we're all getting pretty good at that. But the fulfillment part is somewhat lacking, as it's not part of revenue management today. And that often makes what happens often is that the standard room gets oversold, the room category, the next level, gets people get moved to that room category without being paying for it. They basically get moved because they need to get out of the standard needs to be get empty so that people can all get a room, and then the higher level room is given away often for free. And I think the opportunity that revenue management systems also have, and we have, is to optimize the fulfillment. So when you deliver on it, when you set a price, also make sure that you can deliver on that price. And if you optimize fulfillment, which basically, in our opinion, means you're going to be able to turn over rooms faster, you're going to get people assigned to rooms at a price rather than just moving them to another room category, and therefore you increase the opportunity to sell more of what people want at a higher price. So I think also in revenue management there are opportunities on the bottom line to optimize the inventory and all that kind of stuff, so that you can offer more, which especially applies, for example, around early arrival and late departure. That's an area that's totally not revenue management today. It's just basically a hotel decides today it's $50 to arrive early, whatever time you come, and tomorrow it's the same, unless somebody decides to change it. But
Right.
if you can optimize that and link it to, for example, what did I pay for the room that I asked early arrival for? What's the value of that room today? And you look at all of those components, then you can optimize their price. Now, the danger with early arrival and late departure is, can I fulfill it? That's very often where operations gets into a fight with revenue management. And that part of fulfillment is not automated today, but we can automate that today. Yeah. And if you automate that, you can further increase opportunities to sell rooms and other products. Right. So that's going back to your previous question.
No problem.
on the ABS things, I mean, Klaus and I have been on various panels over the last 12
a lot
months,
of them,
and we've been talked about the topic. I think George Rukas writes great articles about it. There is hotel chains that are looking to put this into their CRS. I think ideas. I cannot speak for EasyRMS, but Paprika can update us on that. We're all thinking towards that because we all think that the sum of all pieces is greater than the whole, basically. So the idea of attribute-based selling is that, of course, I do need a bed and a shower in my room, but everything else is kind of optional. So if I decide I want a ocean view and I want a balcony and I want a coffee machine, and those are the three things I buy, and that determines the price I'm going to pay for the room I'm going to get. I think that's a very attractive opportunity to explore. We see that if you put attributes in an organized way on an upsell offer, it's very easy for hotel guests to understand they're going from here to there. And it seems to work very well for us. So we think that if we can offer those components in a user interface to the guest or through other channels, if we can provide a third-party API that kind of feeds that information to a CRS or a booking engine, for example, that there is a lot of opportunity to further increase the wallet share that you can get from the guest, and you can give the guest even closer to what they're actually looking for. Mm-hmm. Now, that also brings one problem. Now you have to think about fulfilling not only the room category, but in some cases also the physical room, and right. That's an area we are about to get very good in as well.
Paprika, he mentioned maybe this is on your radar. Is this something that Infor is looking at as well?
Yes, totally. I mean, it's, everyone is talking about it, and it makes a lot of sense. So if I can, maybe I'll just try to summarize the millions of thoughts in a very simple way.
Sure.
I mean, for me, this attributes-based pricing or selling is important for two things. The goal is to, well, enhance, the experience for the guests, because in the end, it's allowing them to choose something that's better for them. So if I put myself in the shoes of a guest, I would actually love for it to exist, and it will increase revenues for sure. Because if people can choose, they will pay more. People are willing to pay for stuff that they want. And then the key for these things to work, it's not a black or white, like that's how it's going to work. Because you need to be careful not to give too many choices. So it has to be limited in a way, and it has to be extremely clear, transparent of, what is it that I'm paying as a guest, depending on what I choose. And it should be also very easy to select stuff. So it's the whole experience that, will make it work. So that's from, is it worth it? Yeah, this could definitely work, but I don't think pricing every single little item is probably the solution. Maybe we need to go something a bit bigger and, think of type of guests. If you think like your family with kids, there's lots of stuff that you're very interested in, like you like to know in advance, and that you would pay for to have the confidence, the comfort, to feel comfortable and to look forward to your holiday. And you would pay for it. So, by having the different guest types and what they want and why they're traveling, that could help. But then, so that's the theory part of it, or the guest perspective. But then you have the how would you actually revenue manage that? And for that, well, you need data, which is a little bit the challenge today because it doesn't exist yet in most places. Not a lot of systems do attributes in terms of PMS, etc.
Yep.
Because you need the data to then be able to track that, create forecasts, track the demands, and then optimize and give recommendations on pricing and anything else.
Right.
But it's a super interesting topic.
Yeah. Klaus, how about ideas?
Well, as Joost knows and others, we're
Right.
pretty passionate. For the last, I guess, 3 or 4 years, we've had many conversations, also with Joost's co-founders that go way back, maybe 5 years back. So we've been involved in many of these conversations over the years. I think what I see now, realistically, we're probably 2 years off from getting not from our side, but from the ecosystem side to get some real traction. I know of a number of commitments that have been made between hotel companies and technology partners to have attribute-based pricing implemented within the next 18 months at a high level. So starting slow and then rapidly advancing. And realistically, that's going to be driven by the big chains, because all the big chains have invested a lot of money and are making a lot of inroads in it. From our perspective, we know how to solve it. We know how to address it. We know how to dynamically price different attributes. Kind of, we have the methodology kind of in our heads, in our science, not in my head, but the 20 scientists that we have on our team, in their heads. So it's not from a revenue management perspective, it's not a big problem to solve. It's the difficult part is the fulfillment, as Jos said, as well as the interaction between the revenue management system, the property management system, and the selling systems, right? The booking engines and CRSs, to make sure that the data flows freely and that the guest ultimately gets a better experience than they would have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, agreed. So, it's kind of the Costco effect, right? Which is, to me, the most amazing dynamic I've ever seen in my life. You walk into Costco to purchase one item, and you walk out with a dining room set, right? And it's just human nature to want to be able to go in and say, oh, well, if I can buy that now, and it seems that like the price is right, I'm going to take it. So I definitely think that it's incredibly viable, and we need to get to a shopping cart environment, because that's how people are used to purchasing things today, except things from the hotel industry. It's really kind of interesting. Even purchasing cars, it's down to different preferences. So completely agree. Jos, one of the things that you did at your previous company, Stay in Touch, was focus on mobile, in that guest interaction environment. But obviously revenue management is looking at mobile as a way to deal with all of the complexities that one has to face every day. How do you think mobile is going to affect revenue management from an operations perspective, and possibly even from changing different offers within your world?
That's a good question. I think in my world, or in our world, so to speak, there's a big advantage that kind of goes back to what you just mentioned about Costco. You go in with one and you come out with 10 products. The advantage of mobile is that once the guest has booked the reservation, which they potentially may do at their home, at their desktop, there is a time frame from booking till arrival where you can kind of play the whole way from Costco and send out additional offers to the guests between booking and arrival, which can increase the overall spend you get from that guest and therefore the overall ADR, which can have an effect then on the revenue management system making its decision for the next booking that comes in. If you do that on mobile, a guest will, once they've booked, probably do the rest on their mobile phone, because they're going to get an email or a text or some CRM message that allows them to add something, buy something, upgrade, get breakfast, all these kind of things. So they're all playing a role in getting more value out of the guest, getting more revenue out of the guest, and therefore play a role into determining price. I think from an operational point of view, and I've seen this advertised by multiple RMS systems, I think there is more opportunity to manage the process of the RMS system from anywhere at any given time. So you can be more ad hoc if you want to be. But I would also like to see what Klaus and Paprika have to say about that, because as Paprika mentioned earlier, the focus is on taking away actions from the hotel to having the machine do it for the hotel, which, by the way, I think is the way it can be best achieved, because a machine can make much faster decisions than a human being in general, especially when there's a lot of data behind it. So I'm curious to hear what the two of them have to say about the mobile aspect.
Agreed. So Klaus, over to you.
Yeah, the way we look at it is, it's not about mobile versus desktop. It's about the level of interaction and the level of sophistication a person has to interact with the revenue management system. We've always been a decision system. So for the last 30 years, or 35 years, when our president and COO founded the company, they made a decision to make sure that the system does make decision, and the system can run with minimal human interaction. So that's always been our guiding principle from the very beginning of the company. What we're now seeing is traditional revenue management systems have been focusing on the very sophisticated user, the revenue manager, who has a lot of time to look for graphs and charts and run reports and build their own Excel tools, like I have 25 years ago. But that's not the reality anymore, right? You have a owner operator at a roadside motel that maybe has 5 or 10 minutes to interact with pricing, and just wants to know what's changed and if the system is making the right decisions with them. And so that's on one end of the spectrum, a person that doesn't really know revenue management other than, I need to make sure my prices are right, and doesn't have the time to sit in front of a computer. And on the other spectrum, you still have the revenue manager or the central revenue management team now that needs to understand how they can most effectively drive 20, 30, 40 properties from a central location. Right. And we want to cater for, or we are catering for, the entire spectrum. So if you're today an owner operator, a franchisee, or if you're an independent hotel, you can have that mobile experience. And we spent the last 4 years to build a complete new platform that's currently being implemented to cater specifically to that limited service and economy segment. And that's a mobile first experience. And then on the higher end, you want to have that full experience that a revenue management expert wants and needs to answer the questions from many, many stakeholders across the organization. So it's not so much about mobile versus desktop. It's about giving the people the choice according to the time commitment and the sophistication that they have to interact with the system in different ways.
So irrespective of guest or employee or colleague, we're all trying to give people what they want, right? And so, Paprika, what's your take on mobility and its effect?
Yeah, I 100% agree with what everything Klaus just said. We have totally the same vision. If we think
Okay, well,
of
then we'll just go on to the next question. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
but if we think of an RMS on mobile, from that perspective, it has to exist. I mean, it's been a must since a few years, to be honest. Now even more with pandemic, with more people working from home, it's even more needed. But to be honest, it was needed before that. And here the goal is not, as Klaus was saying, not to replicate everything you have in a desktop version, but to do something that's really what is the needs from a mobile app. And the logic is that the system can run on its own, right? You don't need to interact with it. But if you do, what are the stuff you need to do? And what we've realized with our mobile apps is that actually there's massive adoption from not the revenue managers, but from GMs, owners, and they love it because they can see their few KPIs, what pricing is being sold at. And it's actually allowed to increase the usage and putting the RMS more central into the overall organization, which is beneficial for everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Alan, just one thing. Sorry, I was just thinking maybe the question should also become from the consumer side, right? So on the consumer side, I think there is a huge opportunity, like Joost mentioned, because consumers interact with the mobile phone very, very, very differently than the desktop, right? It becomes more of a conversation and more of a continuous dialogue and engagement with the consumer. And the only company that I've seen doing that well at the moment is Hopper, that enters into a dialogue with the consumer throughout the customer journey and tries to sell them different things at different stages in the customer journey. And they don't even go down where Roomdeck is going, right? Roomdeck's with the pre-arrival, post-booking pre-arrival engagement, right? So there's a massive amount of opportunity to generate more revenue and higher levels of satisfaction by having capabilities to engage differently.
Yeah.
I would even say if a hotel doesn't have a good mobile experience, you're losing revenue. I mean, because if you're just relaxing, you're checking your phone, you're thinking of your holiday. If it's easy, you will go ahead and book. If it's not, you go and see somebody else. For a lot of people.
Yeah, I completely agree. For me, simplicity is key. Not that I want to do big shout outs to OTAs, but I went to Hungary a few years ago and booked the entire trip going through Germany, Austria, and Hungary, all via Booking.com. It was fabulous, and I was pinged with. Not only was I pinged with offers, but I was also pinged with interesting things to do in the areas. So it was really interesting. One of the things we're talking about, all this innovation, I think it's awesome, and I think the industry is definitely up to it. I remember the revenue management in its early days, where, if you talked automation, sometimes people would curl into a small ball, but what are the things that are impacting innovation detrimentally in our space right now? And Joost, I'm going to start with you on this.
I think that's predominantly automation at this point of time. Everybody is looking to find tools that can minimize labor, because obviously post-COVID there's an issue with labor around pretty much around the world. I think I spoke to some hotels in Holland, United States, and all Dubai. They're all looking for people they can't find. I think COVID has finally hit a home run for a lot of hoteliers that are thinking the old way, that they need to see people in person and shake hands, and that the check-in experience is the reason why guests come to a hotel. I think they finally realized that's actually not the case. They just want to have a good stay and a pleasant stay and a comfortable stay in a nice hotel room in a nice location. And they do want to be treated well, but they don't need to have to go through a 10-minute check-in experience where they have to provide all kinds of administrative information. I think that came home in the last 1.5 years. When I had Stay in Touch, I tried to get to that the last last 6 years. It was initially fairly hard to sell, to bring to attention that it would be good to have a system that does mobile check-in and mobile check-out. Now that has become a little easier. It's still, I think, fairly hard to achieve. So I think automation is what people are going to look for. So, and of course, on top of automation is how do I increase revenue, and on the bottom of that is how do I reduce costs. Right. And I think we mentioned a few of those throughout the last 40 minutes or so already. First, try to get more out of the guest by offering more in different components, then increase the price if you can, in a fair way, of course. And then, of course, try to optimize so that you can better fulfill and actually don't have to, go back and correct too many things.
Right.
So I think automation around fulfillment is definitely going to be a key factor going forward.
How about you, Paprika? Are there any stumbling blocks related to innovation in our space?
Yeah, there's a few. If we could maybe summarize them, I would say in 3 different areas. So first is the technology. How systems talk to each other, what data we can get, what output we can send back, so that actually whatever our scientists think about can actually happen in real life. That's one of the biggest challenges, and there's also how systems are intrinsically built, like PMSs, etc. They're based on room types, room categories, rate codes, market segments, which is fine, right? But it gives a certain constraint in a way. So that's one, the technology. Then the second category I would say culture, or just being human. There's a lot of a lack of trust in a system that's fully automated, which is not a bad thing. It's totally natural. And wanting to over control things and understand everything. But if you want systems to be very granular and be fully automated, at some point there's a need to let go and trust, which goes in different ways. But that's a little bit of a stumbling block. And the third one, which is in a way it's quite general, is linked to companies and how companies operate. Is we usually look at short-term financial focus. How did we do this month? How did we do this quarter? How did we do this year? And that usually blocks a bit of creativity, innovation, because there's a risk of losing money when you do something you've never done before.
Yeah.
So
very true. Klaus, you've been around the industry as long as I have, and Jos, and we've seen a myriad of challenges. What do you think are the ones that are really impacting our space right now?
Well, I'm actually quite excited about the space we're in right now. I don't think we've ever seen so much innovation and new stuff coming out. Technology is getting cheaper and cheaper, and entrepreneurs and innovators like Jos and his team, who've all known for many, many years, are just doing fantastic stuff. So I'm actually pretty excited. The number one thing that's stopping us from going faster in innovation today is access to data and the ability to send that data to other places. I can't tell you how many times we would love to do things, but because we can't have access to the data that we want, or we cannot send the data to a system that can absorb it, we cannot do what we could do and to push the industry forward. Right. An example is we've been working the last couple of years on a project to get closer to the CRM systems and integrate revenue management and marketing automation tools more closely. And it's just impossible to get the right data to make the right decisions and then send those decisions back into other systems, right? So the number one priority that stifles innovation right now is the inability to get the right data and then be able to efficiently send that data back to wherever it needs to get sent to. If that could be resolved, and I know there are some efforts by the big technology companies to make it easier to interchange data, but if that gets resolved, it'll be unlimited.
Cool. All right, we're almost coming to the end. I just want to go around the table, and any last thoughts? Jos, I'll start with you.
Last thoughts. I think for for hoteliers, I would definitely think about how can I maximize revenue by of course, having a revenue management system, and find also ways how can I, what opportunities can I use to have more selling points towards the guest post booking. So going back to your Costco corridor story, I think that's really key, because that's really a fairly easy way to get more revenue out of a guest without the guest being upset, assuming you can fulfill whatever you more sell to the guest. I mean, pretty simple example. This morning I was talking to a non-hotelier, but basically a potential guest who said, yeah, when I book my room, that's just how much money I'm willing to spend. But then as I get close to arrival, I kind of forgot how much I spent. And then that $25 extra, Why not? I'll just buy it.
Right.
So that's like now you have, instead of 200, you have $225 out of a guest, and you can keep going like that. So it's a very simple principle that, technically speaking, works very well. So I would definitely focus on RMS, automation, try to create more digital touch points before arrival, and get those in place as soon as possible before the full business comes back.
Great. Klaus?
Yeah, I think the biggest opportunities right now are for the expansion of revenue management into other areas, as I mentioned, right? Revenue, total profit optimization. So expanding it into more revenue areas, and then making the revenue management principles or revenue science available to more people in an organization. And you talk about marketing, meeting and events. You talk about sales. You talk about distribution, loyalty, F&B. And I also think that revenue management is being applied more and more in, we talk a lot about hotels, but let's think about the broader area of accommodation, not just hotels. So anytime anyone wants to sleep somewhere or stay somewhere, we should be able to optimize that and bring revenue science to bear.
Perfect. And Paprika, last but not least.
So I guess to the hoteliers who are watching, I mean, today the panel is about RMS innovations. So first, I would recommend to see, where do you stand today? Do an honest audit. Okay, where am I today? How much space am I today revenue managing in my property? And how am I doing that? Am I using a system? Is it someone doing it? Is the GM? Just to have a kind of a vision of where you're at, and then see what would be the next step to improve that. For some people, it may be to get an RMS. For some others, it may be to actually use better the RMS. And for some others, it may be to go beyond bedrooms and start revenue management and managing meeting space. So that would be a bit the recommendation. See what is your next step for you.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, Jos Schaap from Roomdex, Klaus Kohlmeier from Ideas, and Paprika Le Bourgeois from Infor. Thank you so very much for an amazing session, and I hope to see you in a few weeks in Dallas.
Likewise, thank you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Cheers. We really appreciate it. Thanks again.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.